Hi there, Agile friends. I'll come in here just with a quick note to let you know that the Agile Online Summit 2022 is coming soon. To know more, check out bit.ly/AOS2022. That's all one word, all lowercase, bit.ly/AOS2022. Now, stick around to the end of the episode if you want to know more, but for now, on to the show. Hello, everybody. Welcome to a very special bonus episode. And for this bonus episode, joining us from the Valley in the US is Alon, the CTO at Gainsight. Hey, Miki, welcome to the show.
Hey, but thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So Miki is the founder and CTO of Gainsight PX, a product experience platform. He's a serial entrepreneur focused on designing, building, and launching innovative products that help drive business outcomes. Miki co-authored Mastering Product-Led Growth, a book on building product-led growth strategy, and he's held several other executive positions at other companies, including being the CEO and co-founder at Insightera. Did I pronounce that name correctly?
Yeah, Insightera.
So, Miki, so first of all, thanks for being here. It's not always that we have the opportunity to interview somebody with your background, especially, executive and management background in product organizations. So I'm really excited to have you and to dig into your experience and pick your brain on a bunch of topics. But to get our listeners into your world and to know more about you, share with us right now, as the CTO and founder of Gainsight PX, what's your single biggest challenge?
I have many challenges as a founder, but I think at Gainsight today, we kind of relaunching and rebranding Gainsight in the past, I would say, year towards building durable growth. We've done that as a platform. We want to help SaaS companies be successful. And when you think about how a successful SaaS company is, it's based on how well they acquire customers, how well they retain them, and how well can they expand. So that's the challenge we took as a platform, as a durable growth platform, to help SaaS companies do that. So we are trying to be the thought leaders in the market, but also provide the technology to drive that. So our challenge is how do we make companies build alignment, right? It's something that is not related to software. Saying if you come to a company, usually they have like marketing, sales, customer success, product engineering, not necessarily aligned around the customer lifetime value, around the customer journey. And then how do we deliver the best platform experience? We have 3 products today. So my challenge is like, how do we create a consistent experience and really become the most powerful platform out there? Combining the platforms we have today. We have a community platform, we have product experience platform, which is allowing you to understand product usage data and in-app messaging and things like that. And we have the customer success platform that helps you orchestrate the customer journey, doing high touch, low touch. So how do we create one consistent, durable platform? That's my number one challenge.
And of course, when it comes to that, bringing 3 different things together in a way that makes sense for your customers, which, as you said, also have their own challenges in getting aligned. Of course, the critical role there, or at least one of the critical roles, is going to be the product owner role. And we talk a lot about product owners here on the podcast. And I'm sure that, of course, because you're doing that kind of work that needs a lot of product owner input, right? Like bringing these 3 aspects together into a platform that helps customers solve real problems. I'm sure that you pay a lot of attention to what kind of skills and, of course, personality traits the product owners you hire have. So when you hire product owners for your company, right, you're thinking of building this platform that helps others grow. Obviously, you're leading the way by trying to grow your own platform, right? So what kind of skills and personality traits do you look for in product owners when you're looking for them?
Yeah, I think as a company and our CPO and like when they hire product owners, I think what we are looking for is people that have both, I would say, creative mindsets, because I think if you think for the future, You need to kind of, it's an art and a science, but we also are looking for analytical traits as well. We are a big believer in like making data-driven decisions, while when you create a new experience, you need to kind of think outside the box. And usually it's like very different skill set in people. So I would say the more recent profile that we see emerging as product owners is a good, it's almost like entrepreneurial mindset. When you're on one side, you can challenge everything. You can basically, you want to make things better, but you're able to challenge any consensus and then create something new. But on the other side, you're very data driven. Once you launch something, you don't just try to convince yourself or others. You look at the data and say, is this successful or not? How do I optimize that? So these are like the two elements that we see. And actually, we're looking for people that have like broad view of things. So usually people that has a lot of different hobbies and things like that, that tend to be people that have a broader knowledge, because we believe that in some cases, innovation comes from like different paradigms, and you can just bring it into that area. We have product managers that came from marketing automation, for example. So they understand user engagement very well, as well as product managers coming from analytics and machine learning. They understand data insights very well. So those are the kind of area that we want to bring in together so they can bring those ideas together. And as for growth, this is something that all companies need to figure out, as well as ours, of who eventually owns the customer journey. Sometimes it's the chief customer officer, makes sense, but eventually our customers are going through the product, right? Most of their customer interaction from SaaS companies is happening in the product. And so who owns that growth is...
So how have you done it so far at Gainsight? Who in your organization now owns the full customer journey?
It's a good question. We basically have the chief customer officer as well. So there's a lot of inputs from different teams. We have a tiger team that is focusing on that. But I think long term, it's gonna be, and what we see in other companies, the product growth or growth PM is becoming a new role that at least can coordinate and consolidate, because all those inputs has to hit the product at some point. Like you have to build stuff into the product to make this happen. There's also like other things we do, but eventually the core thing is to have the growth PM own it and collaborate with the chief customer officer, collaborate with marketing, the CMO, collaborate. But eventually some decision needs to go and impact the roadmap. And this is where I think the reason it should sit, in my view, in the growth PM role is because they know the product deeply, and they can translate those needs and requirements into a roadmap items and things we should build to deliver experience.
So you talk about growth PM, and for me, I mean, first of all, I love the term. I have been arguing among my clients for a long time that organizations should focus on the growth of their product, since growth is the evidence that you're actually serving someone, right? If the product isn't growing, you're probably just out of inertia, staying with the existing customers, and that's it, right? So very often we talk about the need to find the proof that we are actually helping customers solving real problems through growth, right? And you talked about analytics as being one key aspect, right? So understanding the numbers and being able to study the numbers, to run experiments as well, right? Because we need to run a lot of experiments to find what actually grows the product. But as you were continuing your answer, you then started to focus on something that I want to highlight and explore a little bit more, because you said at the end of the day, we need to collect a lot of inputs, right? We need to facilitate collaboration among different aspects. Marketing needs to come in, sales needs to come in, especially in the B2B environment. Definitely sales needs to come in. Obviously, the product perspective, what's possible, innovation, etc., needs to come in. And I start to think that from your perspective, I wanted to ask you this aspect of being able to organize around growth and to manage and even catalyze that collaboration becomes a critical skill, no?
Yeah. I think it's like one of the things I actually wrote in my Mastering Portly Growth book is like, how do you create this alignment? And usually it starts from building KPIs around the customer journey. So an alignment around that. That's the best way to see where the most of the attention. KPIs are great just to see, are you actually trending well and where should you focus? It doesn't give you the causation, but it starts from having those business KPI and core metrics. And so if you think about customer journey perspective, they start with like top of funnel as they know your brand. So MQL, SQL, we introduce product qualified lead at PQL, meaning that, hey, just don't qualify customers based on their web activity, or you want to also see if they're using your product in a trial. For example, what signals can you pick up and contribute to this qualifying customer, like to your MQL and SQL, and help them show the sales and marketing. Here's the kind of additional data points you can build into your model so they can do their job better. They can engage with customers more contextually, whether it's automatic or in face-to-face with sales. They need that data point. So I think it starts from measurements, and you basically look at the customer journey, because usually in customer journey, there's like before they become customer, marketing, sales are way more involved. As they become customers, it's customer success, still sales for expansion, and the product can do a lot end to end. Like if you think about eventually who can really help with the end to end customer journey is the product managers, because as soon as they log in for a demo, a trial, a freemium, you can influence that, right? And then you need to think about that way. Sometimes product owners think about differentiation, long-term things like core features, new features. The growth PM says like, hey, before we go there, what's the first 3 to 7 days experience? Do they actually understand the product? Can I have the product assist in that? And the answer is yes, if you prioritize features, if you prioritize messaging and help customers.
And if you understand that, right? Like you were talking about that, I'll just clarify. So I understood MQL stands for marketing qualified leads, SQL sales qualified leads, and then PQL product qualified leads, right? And I was just thinking as you were describing that, like that understanding, that deep understanding of how the customer interacts with the product and when do they make certain decisions through their behavior, we can observe that. That is a critical aspect of how we then build the product forward. I mean, I very often talk to the product owners I work with that we need to engineer the product for growth, right? Like the product is not just a collection of features. It needs to come into the customer's life, solve a problem, and then immediately create the opportunity for either purchase, which is one way to grow, or then further services, whatever those services might be, right? So give us some insights. At Gainsight, how do you guys engineer your product for growth? What are some of the things that you see work?
Fantastic. So engineering for growth or engineering for adoption means that we prioritize a little bit differently. For example, we start prioritizing existing enhancement to existing features. One of the key things like most product managers would do, like always, there's a lot of pressure. What are you working on? It should be new. It should be shiny. Sales are going to be super excited. That's going to solve everything. And that's like a very easy way to create a death cycle for products because you create too many features and too many use cases, and eventually customers come in and guess what? They have no idea how to really implement and get to the differentiation. And you start to be like disconnected from the user more and more, like because you master the product, you're a PM, you know how to use the product, you demo it, the sales depth, but customers are not there. So what we do is prioritizing, like starting from the first mile of product. How can we make that in a easy and a very intuitive way based on what you're trying to achieve? So we suddenly prioritize features with engineering that is actually growth-oriented features. And I give you an example. As soon as someone signs up for Gainsight PX, the product experience platform, we actually ask them, there's a quick quiz or wizard that asks you, what's your role? Engineering, product manager, marketing. And then second step, what is your objective? We actually coded that. And engineer, it takes him like 2 hours to do it, but it looks great. It's part of your product. And now the purpose of this is for us. Now we know when we track the trial or the entire interaction now for the entire customer lifecycle, I know the role and I know your objective. What are you trying to achieve? And most products that reach product market fit, if they're having any analytics and they don't know to answer who's using my product, what's the role, and what is the top objective, they are not focusing on outcome. They are not optimizing their product and roadmap to that. So we use engineering code and stuff like that to kind of optimize that. Second would be we even build some tools which is not core to our products. For example, we just released the Chrome plugin, and it came from engineering, that innovations. And the only reason we did that is actually it's helping you. If you sign up for a trial, you can install the Chrome plugin and we will show you the full experience on your product without you needing to go to engineering. Because Gainsight PX is an analytics solution, so we have to have our customers install a JavaScript snippet. The Chrome plugin just bypassed that step. So imagine that instead of waiting 6 weeks, now they in 6 minutes, they can actually see experience. So that was like engineering building this Chrome plugin, and that's prioritization to experience that. Third, from what we do in our engineering and product management is like taking the core features and making them better. We launch a new in-app editor. We are launching new funnels. We are launching new dashboard. We have those features today, but we realize that we want to make it more robust and scalable and easy. So time to value translates to engineering priorities to refine the core functionality. And it's not saying it's not good, because that's the biggest challenge. Like, why do engineers go back and do the same feature? Actually, you're making that, you've done something that was great 3 years ago. Today, you need to make it better. And
you might have gotten some indication that in that particular area you're losing some users. They don't end the action, for example, or whatever reason. Yeah. And actually what you just said, that story about that small tool that engineering came up with that was added to the product, especially for those in the trial, it raises the topic, and I don't know if that's how it happened for you guys, but for me it raises the topic of the need to have a product owner that is able to source ideas from multiple different directions, right? Like engineering will have the ability to innovate, especially when it comes to technical delivery, because that's their domain of expertise. And if the PM is able to listen to these ideas and integrate them in that, what we were just talking about, which is the engineering the product for growth aspect, then it can bring, listening to this can raise a lot of new and impactful ways to interact with the customer.
Right. I think you have to empower engineering to do it, because I feel you have a very intelligent group in the company, and they can, if you connect them first to the customer and product, and don't treat them as like, like task executors based on your requirements, that creates kind of a gap. And then all they care about is the technology they use, not the product, not the customer. And as soon as they, done with using the new framework, they move to the next job. I think you can change that by connecting that. Like, here's the customer, here's the use case. We have our engineers actually speak with customers. They take, even if it's either it's a bug or actually POC or use case we've never heard, we're actually bringing engineering to the call, and they even take customer calls directly sometimes. And that created a mindset of they understand now the product, and they come up with ideas to even make it better and innovate. And there's a lot, now every design, every requirement, when it's a UX or design or like a product requirement, they have a feedback and input on like, hey, I think we can make this feature even more interesting, or adding functionality that we didn't think about, because they are now connected. And I think that's key for getting retaining engineers and making your product way better, because when they design a solution and they just understood a tiny piece of what you just told them as a requirement, they will design it not in an optimal way, and then they need to refix it and all that stuff. So once they're part of that, I think they can drive a lot of innovation. And I can tell you that the biggest innovation that happened came from engineering. For example, we went into we track website and like a web application SaaS. It's all browser based. We have mobile SDK, but engineers said, there's actually downloadable desktop application like Zoom or Autodesk. So we can actually build an SDK for that, and they kind of in few days build a prototype. And today we have a support for mega customers to desktop application. We didn't even think it's possible. But engineers came in and said, well, they love actually tough challenges, right? One of the things as an engineer, you want to really go after things that are kind of impossible in the market, and you figure them out. And that's really massive. So again, like using engineering to be part of the roadmap, to part of the ideation, is massive. And again, the biggest innovation will come from them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So now we dive into a challenge here. Okay. So let's say I'm a PO and I just got hired by a growth company, a company that wants to grow massively. And this is actually a real story, by the way. It's a client that I've worked with. And I'm tasked with growing my product sales by 5 times, from 50 million a year to 250 million a year. So what would be your advice from your experience and all the work that you have done for Gainsight as well as for your customers? Where should I start?
That's a great question. You start, so first, what I'm seeing more and more in companies, they split to 2 growth motions. One is acquisition. How do I get more customers? And usually still by 50 million, you still need to have more customers and still even experiment on like, what is the key use cases, the primary use cases you're solving. That's one thing. And it's that mindset when you think about acquisition is like those tactical small things that make customers stick and understand your solution, but it's all about this first experience. It's not the deep realized value with all the sophisticated stuff. It's like a very different mindset. And you have to iterate and run a lot of experiments to see what actually got them to stay versus the expansion area. So if you split that to acquisition and expansion, when you go to expansion, this is a different mindset, and you want to look at the how you're doing from retention perspective. Do you have a leaky bucket, or are you able to retain more than 90% of your customers year over year? And I would start with even retention before I go to acquisition, because in retention, every point you're improving, if you're retaining more customers, you're retaining way more revenue. So you start from the data and saying like, hey, my business KPI, how are we doing with customer acquisition cost, pipeline? Is this green? Is this okay? And then how are we doing on retention? Are we retaining the customers well? Or now, it's actually, we have 20, 30% churn. That's like, go there, fix that leaky bucket, because don't worry about acquisition. And in that scenario, you have to dive into the core objective and outcome of customers. Eventually, they will renew only if they were able to truly achieve full value. Not, hey, I was doing the basic stuff. It's easy to use, fun stuff, but we need to pay you again. Like, yeah, but it's not critical. I didn't see ROI. And B2B SaaS, it's about making them successful in their job. Truly, they're able to do what they need to do with your solution. So start with the way the pain, and usually when 50 and above, usually it's more towards retaining, and then you want to look at what is the expansion path, because the biggest revenue you can do, like retaining them first, so you basically have this recurring revenue happening, and then if you can expand, can be upsell or cross-sell. And it actually says, what features do I put as potential expansion features, upsell or cross-sell? Don't just give all the features all the time. You say, hey, maybe it's consumption-based, maybe it's other product or modules. Have a clear path for expansion. And then as product owner, you can prioritize the journey and always seeing on the data, what is driving that expansion? How can I make people use the software more so they can see more value, but also pay more? Classic example from, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You were giving an example.
Yeah, I think, the more you're using Google Cloud, Amazon Cloud, right? You're doing more business, you're paying them more, but it's a classic thing. And they give you more and more tools. For example, as engineers, they give you monitoring tools, security tools, so they're growing with you. It's consumption based, and they have a clear path what is the right timing to offer you those tools. When you start, you don't care about high availability that much or security. As you grow, suddenly, so if you think about their roadmap, it's like, what are the key add-ons and incremental revenue I can sell you? And today, usually as a product owner, sometimes you just like making customers happy, but you don't think about, am I pushing revenue as well? Am I giving them more functionality, and do I align with pricing and packaging? Is it like going to drive more revenue or just like happy customers? And that's a discussion you want to have with sales and marketing, saying, how do we build expansion?
Exactly. I was actually coming to that just before you were sharing that example from the cloud providers. The collaboration with sales and marketing, of course, becomes critical for a product owner, right? Like or a product manager. They can't just think of product as a collection of features. They have to think of a product as more like an ecosystem, right? Like in your case, you were talking about, okay, so do we grow expansion through cross-sell, so selling other products, upsell, so selling a more expensive version of the product, or as you said, is it consumption, right? Like, it's X dollars per month if you have 5,000 customers, and it's double that if you have 7,000 customers, or whatever that is, right? Like, so growing with your customers and understanding what they do and how they grow, that it kind of becomes almost, I would say, the product manager needs to become an ecosystem manager, right? Because it's both the sales input, the marketing input, but also understanding the core processes at the customer side that they can be part of, and then trying to put all of those together.
Yeah, the ecosystem or integration area is a way to increase stickiness, for example. There's many tactics you can increase stickiness with your product. And sometimes it's, again, it's not the classic mindset of, because you're focusing on, let me build new great features to launch. But for example, how's your integration doing with like CRMs? How are you integrating with API? These are it's table stakes, and do you promote them, right? You just build them, you check the box, or do you really promote and make users use it? Because once they do, now swapping is very difficult once they use your API. So it's a game of like, get stickiness and invest in those features that might be just like table stakes, not sexy features, but guess what? It helps your customer drive a ton of value.
Yeah, and we just talked about the cloud providers, right? That give you all of this, monitoring tools, performance tools, even cost management tools, so that, now you're there. Now you don't want to go anywhere else because they give you the tools that you need in order to do a good job.
Exactly. So cost management is not core for cloud provider, right? It's not, they're building your infrastructure, Kubernetes, all that stuff, but they realized, hey, we need to help you manage the solution. So it's like, and it gets stickier. Like the more now they bring financial people into the cloud, like, so they bring more personas as well. So they create more dependencies, more value. So it's, I also call it like sneaky sticky. It's like they give you some value, but their goal is to make sure that you stay with them. And it's not core to their application, but their goal is, I want to make you stay and renew. And I want to make it very difficult for you to swap.
Yeah, I mean, it immediately comes to mind some of the products that the mobile phone manufacturers are bringing into their products, like Google Fit, for example, right? Like the moment you have your data there, you have to use a Google product. You can't go to Apple anymore.
Exactly, and there's even more than that. Like you cannot even swap your battery and like this. So vendors are trying to create that lock mechanism, and it's not your core feature. And that's a mindset like, why should I build others like basic tools? There's other solution for it, but guess what? You want to build it because it will create stickiness. You make way easier for your customers, as we said, manage the cost or monitor. If you're sending them to another tool to do it, you're putting yourself at risk. Then you're minimizing. So it's prioritizing those features which are not your core and helping you retain customers. It's again like not the classic thinking from
yeah, absolutely. Also, especially because, as you said, like this cross-sell, upsell, and consumption upgrades are a core aspect of growing a product, right? They are not just an accident. They are there because they are incredibly powerful also to grow the product. So, Mickey, we're getting close to the end, but I did want to ask you one question. from all of the things you've tried in the past, I mean, you've worked in many companies, you founded several companies. What's the strategy that worked the best for product growth? From all of those that you've used in the past, what's the one that you would say, okay, that was the best ever in my career?
I think it's the realization. It's an art and science, and you always want to start with the foundational elements. The best was again like to look at the data and then really look at like more holistically and saying where is the major problem do I have? Is it? And again, usually it's like focusing on retention first, figuring out that why customers and how many of my customers know the full breadth of my product. 90%, I think, and I led the engineering Marketo. We saw that our customers don't know 40% of our functionality. Can you imagine your engineering building so many stuff, maintaining
That
stuff?
costs a lot of money, by the way. That
Of
40%
course, a
is
lot
very
of money,
expensive.
technical debt, and like there's two customers that use one old feature and you get stuck with it, but 40% of your customers don't know. So I think the best one would just to start with being very data driven, and starting putting like data into your day-to-day decisioning, product usage data, show me, and connecting revenue to that. So we can say holistically, hey, this is why we invest there, because we're seeing most customers used this and most customers struggle with that. And having this framework of saying, let me do some experiment. And to me, experiment is not A/B testing. It's actually saying, okay, we're seeing customers that are getting basic value, but not the true value of the platform. And it's a very classical element. How do we get there? And one framework that works for us very well is you always plan in your roadmap and your sprint planning. You put like 20% for things you just learned in the past 2 or 3 weeks, right? You cannot predict what you're going to learn, what the customer feedback is going to be. You cannot predict that. But if customer comes to you and say, hey, I'm struggling with this, if you had a simple link, simple stuff, and you're telling them, yeah, it's going to be in the next release in 3 months, you're killing their experience. So the framework, we say, go with retention, see what is the gap for outcome, and then how do we get it with iterative small enhancements to get customers to achieve that value. And usually it's like 20 to 30 small, we call it paper cuts. They go because, they try to do this and there's like issues. Focusing on that first was always helping us better understand our customers and build better product before we go launch new features, create more technical debt and things like that.
Yeah, I wish some of the products that I use every day, I wish the developers would pay more attention to the paper cuts, because it's after a few weeks it gets really frustrating.
Especially in a daily tool. Like if it's like in most SaaS B2B, on average, we one of the KPIs we measure is how many business days do users use the solution. There's all the many KPIs I'm hearing, DAU versus MAU. One of the really key KPIs, like how many business days do they use it? If it's like 3, and in our case it's 3.4 days a week, people use our product. It means that small paper cut 3 times a week, it's painful. You're bleeding. If it was once a month, you figure out, no big deal. But if it's a daily tool, then those small things will actually make them churn and look for other solution.
Absolutely. I can tell you that it has happened to me with many different products. All right. So, Mickey, you're the CTO at Gainsight PX, and we'll put the link to Gainsight, of course, so that people can go and find out more about the products that you guys provide. But how about you? Where can people find out more about you and the work that you're doing?
Yeah, obviously connect through LinkedIn. My profile is available there. We do a lot of webinars. So like in gainsight.com, just check out the events. We do a lot of on-demand webinar as well as an abundance of those. And we do have meetups. We're going to start doing, we're going to start in the Bay Area, but we're going to do like in different cities. Small, like more intimate meetups, and which, we're going to have a guest speaker, but I'm going to be there as well to kind of, be able to be available and speak about product-led growth and durable growth.
Absolutely. And by the way, your book, is it available on Amazon and all the usual places?
Yeah, it's available on Amazon, but also available for free as a PDF from Gainsight.com. You can actually find that as well.
All right, absolutely. We'll put the link on the show notes so that people can go and find it. Miki, it's been a pleasure. So thank you very much for your generosity with your time and your knowledge.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Hi there, Agile friends. Thank you for sticking around to know more about this year's Agile Online Summit. The summit will have 4 keynotes and 4 tracks you will not want to miss. The keynotes will touch on critical topics for us, from delivering on time to helping you to focus on sustainability. The 4 tracks are tools, so we'll focus on tools you need to excel at your job, but also your mission. We'll also have a track on sustainability, which is, of course, about people and their sustainable pace, but it's also about how do we bring sustainability to the products and the planet we inhabit. We'll have a 3rd track about happiness, talking about doing what we love and, most crucially, loving what we do. And finally, the 4th track will be live. It will be mostly hands-on sessions to help you roll up your sleeves together with the presenters. Oh, and we will also have a coaching clinic, as we usually do, organized to help you discuss and get inspired to solve the hardest challenges you face at work. This year, we'll have a special emphasis on interaction with your peers, so get your ticket and join the Slack at bit.ly/AOS 2022. As always, we have free tickets for anyone that wants to attend live, and the VIP tickets for those of you who want to keep the videos forever. So check them out at bit.ly/AOS 2022. I'll see you on the conference floor. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.